So hi, everybody. I'm happy to have the University of Washington admission counselor with us. Alicia Ruff will be here shortly, and she's just calling in. So hang in there with us, and we'll be back shortly. I think we're getting her video. So thank you so much, Alicia, for agreeing to come on our webinar and to talk to, La Miranda and San Francisco families about UW. It's a very popular university for us, as you know, and so we're excited to have you. Thank you again for appearing. And so sorry there was that glitch, but you know how it goes.
Definitely technology. I think we've just all been
what are we going to do with
kind of learning.
So I just wanted to welcome everybody. My name is Liz Laporte, and I'm the founder of Laporte Education Advising, and I'm happy to be working with community members throughout the Bay Area and introducing them to great schools like the University of Washington and others. We've had several webinars, and they've been really great. So with that, let's talk about UW. And Alicia, welcome again. And before we start, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about yourself. And I know you have some personal connections to UW. Why don't you start there?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Ruff. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also an admissions counselor for the University of Washington, and I am also a first-gen Husky alumna as well. So I did go to the UW. I had a great experience, and trust me, I didn't just come into this job right after graduation. I did take some time to work globally and came back. And now I'm in higher ed, which is a lot of fun. Hopefully for, whether or not you're first generation or, you have a long history with your family, you've gone to college, I definitely want to make sure that we can break down the process today and kind of explain more about the admission cycle, what we look for in the review, and of course, just talk about the University of Washington in general. So thanks for having me, Liz.
Great. Well, you're most welcome. So before we get into the details of the admission policy, and I do see there's some questions from the audience about that. For those who aren't so familiar with the university, would you like to take a minute to sort of give us an overview of the university?
Yeah, so the University of Washington is a large research public institution. So what that means is that we just have a lot of students who come to our campus. We are a public school in the state of Washington. And I mean, while that's not going to affect you too much coming in from out of state, we do give priority to Washington state residents in general in that admissions process. But I mean, we still have really good rates as far as admissions coming from out of state. And that's why we have such a good California Husky community on our campus. But the UW is located about 15 minutes north of the downtown area. So we have our own neighborhood called the U District, and it's just made up of the university. It's made up of Greek Row and the off-campus housing neighborhoods. And then there's a shopping center down the hill. And then, of course, the main Ave, which is University Way on Google Maps, if you're ever looking at it, with all of the restaurants and hangout spots. Our students, they'll typically probably just get acclimated to the U District at first, and then they'll kind of branch out and figure out different things to do in and around the city, whether that be looking for a new hiking trail, a new restaurant, if you're a foodie like me, or even just branching out and enjoying the Pacific Northwest in general. So you can go kayaking on Lake Washington, which is on our, we're actually nestled up right against Lake Washington, and that connects down to South Lake Union. So our students will rent out kayaks, paddleboarding in the summer, do hikes, and then in the winter, we have all the winter sports out in the mountains. So if you enjoy snowboarding, skiing, or even snowshoeing, you can definitely do so. So we, being a large institution, have a lot to offer as far as resources for students academically, but of course, you're going to be coming into the city and living there as well. So the city of Seattle itself has a lot to offer outside of academics.
Okay, great. So it sounds like a beautiful campus, and the area, of course, is prime location. Let's go into the admissions process and talk a little bit about how that works. I guess in particular, I've got some questions here. So what about you start with that, and then I'll get to the specifics.
All right. Normally I'd like to, I don't know if I can, but is it okay if I shared my screen?
Yes.
Just to show?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me do that real quick.
Make sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'll just kind of get over. We're going to kind of do a skip around. Normally, I like to talk a little bit more about those resources that you'll have available, but we'll definitely talk about the admissions process, since I don't know about if you're all seniors out there, but our application is due pretty soon, here on November 15th. So we'll get started there. PowerPoint. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm sharing the right part of my screen. There we go. Okay. So the University of Washington is a coalition exclusive school. So that just means that we house our one and only application on the coalition platform. It is very much like a platform out there, also starts with a C. I'm not going to even name the name right now, since we're going to focus on coalition. I know you all have the other app there. But the coalition houses about 140 different colleges all across the nation. So you really, as a student, will be able to build out your college list, add us, our campus, Seattle campus, on that application. You potentially apply to Bothell as well, but it just gives you the opportunity to kind of fill in that general information that all colleges ask for in one application. So for UW, we're really in the coalition application itself. That's open all year round to all students. So as a freshman, sophomore, or junior, you can get started on that application piece today if you wanted to. But we'll ask you for that general information. We'll ask you about all the high schools that you've attended, any colleges you've attended or might be receiving credit from will be listed there. And then everything else is just self-reported. So I always encourage everybody, you know, when you're going in and self-reporting your coursework in the 9th through 12th grade section, just make sure you have your high school transcript available and up and ready. And then of course, any college transcripts for those college courses that you might be receiving credit for as well. Once you're kind of done or in that process of completing the profile, the UW questions section is the remaining 20% of your application, and that's only going to be available to you in your senior year on September 1st. So for seniors in the room, that just means it's open. It has been open for the last month. In the UW section, we ask you for your first choice, second choice major, since we do factor that into our review. We ask you for your personal statements and your short response statement. And then the final thing is, if you're interested in Interdisciplinary Honors, which is a leadership program on our campus, and it focuses really heavily on your general education credits and giving back to the community through your coursework, you can definitely apply and put your 2 additional Interdisciplinary Honors essays there. The application fee is $80, and it's $90 for any student who needs an F1 visa to attend the UW. And we do have fee waivers available for our US citizens, and that's in the fee waiver section under the coalition profile. A couple of things that have changed this year. Actually, these are not going to be any changes. This is what we've always done every year is we don't require students to submit transcripts, since you're going to self-report everything in the coalition profile. We're not going to be looking at letters of recommendation. We don't do interviews. So everything that we need needs to be included in that application. So this is going to be your one chance to really be your best advocate. And then we new this year is the SAT and ACT requirement. We're making it optional for students. So especially for those who can't get to a testing site, or it's not available, or it's being canceled, whatever that might look like in your region, just knowing that you don't need to go out of your way to submit them. We want to make sure all of our future Huskies are staying healthy and staying safe. So that's, again, optional moving forward. And that's a rule that we're going to keep moving forward, even after autumn 2021. So for the holistic review, we're going to be looking at 2 primary pillars. First and leading is going to be your academic preparation and performance. So everything you've done inside of the classroom. And then that secondary piece is your personal achievements and characteristics. So everything that you've included in the UW section and in your writings. For the first piece, we're really going to want all of our students to focus on your academic core subject areas. We don't have any minimum GPA requirements or, no tests moving forward. So it's really important that you do meet all of our college academic distribution requirements, which are called CADRs. And you'll notice when you go on the website that it's really going to mirror your minimum high school graduation requirements. So you're not going to have to do too much outside of the box. But we do recommend for all students to go above any of the minimum requirements of our CATRs. And just to give you an example, we only require students to have an Algebra 2 in order to apply. So a majority of our successful applicants will have pre-calculus or even calculus completed. So just going above that CATR requirement. And the same with world languages. World languages, we only have a 2-year requirement, but if you can go and do the 3rd year or even 4th year, that'll definitely strengthen up your academic review. Now, I understand with each high school, there's going to be different types of college prep courses that are available to you. So we do want to see that sprinkled throughout the curriculum. So that indicates to us that you're really preparing yourself for that next step in college, because it is going to be kind of a jump of rigor going, you know, from a high school or even a community college up to a 4-year institution. So we do want to see that sprinkled throughout. So take advantage of that. And we don't have a preference over what type of college prep courses you decide to take. That's really going to be up to the individual. But some, just to give you an example, could be AP, IB, or even Cambridge style curriculum. Can be honors courses, can be college and high school, or even dual enrollment. So you can have a combination of those things, and you'll self-report that in the application. While 1 or 2 semesters are not going to make or break your application, if anything has happened to you that really has impacted your grades in that way, we do want to see the positive grade trend in that next year. And then feel free to give us more information about that. We do have additional comment sections in the application where you can tell us a little bit more about what happened during those semesters, so that we can take that into consideration. For your personal achievements and characteristics, this will be the last slide. But basically, this is actually my personal favorite part of the review. This is the information that you've included in your activities log, in your personal statements, and any additional comments that you might have added. Now, for your activities log, we understand with the impacts of COVID-19 and other natural disasters, that's going to look quite slim for a lot of our students, and that's okay. Everybody's in the same boat. That's not going to disadvantage you or, you know, advantage you in any way. We are going to take this past year into consideration due to those circumstances. But if you do have any previous activities, or if you're doing anything virtual, or you've had projects that you've done, make sure you're including that in the list, and then highlight any leadership opportunities you might have had. Now, for your personal statements, there's really no right or wrong way to write one. Just make sure you, again, are being your own best advocate, and you're sharing with us new experiences that we can't necessarily tell just by looking at your grades. So this is your one chance to really let us know about your personality, your quirks, your likes, your dislikes, maybe the way that you view the world, and how your high school experiences might have shaped or changed that. So definitely make sure you're including those there. I mean, and just to give you an example too, I've had students talk about their dislike for cheese and how that's affected their high school learning experience. It's really funny. I had another student who was coming in from abroad, and she started off her entire essay with, "Read this in Morgan Freeman's voice." That's my internal dialogue from day to day. So it's these small little sentences that just really let us know as readers who you are as an individual. And again, that's outside of academics and just numbers. But that's kind of the holistic review in a nutshell. So if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions. One is, of course, about test scores, and just to emphasize that, I think you said it's test optional, or would you go ahead and review that again in a little bit more detail?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, so UW is technically test optional. So test optional can mean a lot of different things depending on the institution, but at the UW in general, it's definitely not going to disadvantage you in any way if you decide to not send us scores, or maybe even if you decide to take the test and you receive low scores. So just be confident that it's not going to disadvantage you in any way. Now, with that being said, oh, maybe I should just share this screen too. I'm so sorry. I think it's easier if I'm a visual learner. I don't know about you all, but I really like to be able to see things on the board.
That would be helpful. Sure.
Okay, let's share this. And I'm sorry, the picture's a little off because I managed to
No, it looks good.
make it all weird. Okay, great. I don't know why it's looking weird on my end. Okay,
Oh,
okay, great. So if you look at the screen here, this is our middle 50 range for last year of who we admitted. And last year we did require test scores. That's why you see those middle 50 ACT and SAT test scores. And this just means that there are 25% who received higher than these scores that were admitted to UW and 25 below these scores who were also admitted. So remember, we're not only looking at these ranges, we're looking at other components in that holistic review. But if we're looking at just numbers, and we're talking about, you know, being SAT or test optional going forward, if your test scores, if you do have test scores, and if you fall above our middle 50%, if you look at the profile here for non-residents, which is only going to be impacting about 50 students. Let's say if there's a handful of students prior who were sent into the waitlist invitations, and I apologize for kind of fumbling through, but if you are applying to UW and you're a waitlisted applicant, and let's say you submitted your scores and they're higher than these ranges, then there's a potential for you to have an even second or third read by our director. A vast majority of and this review or this third review or second review only happens after we made our final decisions of who's being admitted, who's being waitlisted, and who's being denied admissions. So if you're kind of in that top bar in your waitlisted in the waitlisted applicant pool and you have scores above these, I do recommend submitting your scores because you could potentially have a different admissions decision. Now, there's no guarantees with that, and again, it is only going to impact about 50 students. Probably less than 50 students at that point because we've already made a decision of who we want to admit. So I want to reiterate that it's not going to take away admissions from any students who's already been admitted. But I know that's really confusing now that I'm thinking about it, but if you do have high scores above these ranges, it's a good idea to submit your scores is what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
No, that's great. Yeah, there's a lot of detail. I know it's and things are changing so quickly. It would be curious to know what the process is for you all in terms of reading the applications. Is it a committee? Is it you necessarily? How does that work?
Yeah, no. Before I went into college, I always just assumed everything was by committee, especially at the University of Washington. And boy, was I wrong when I started working for admissions. So basically what happens is every year after November 15th, we have a combination of all of the staff in the office and graduate readers who have been reading applications from year to year who get hired into our office for the season. And out of the reviewers, we look at anywhere between we had about 44,000 applications, so that kind of all gets split up into a pool. It's not separated by high school by any means, so I, as a reader, can just go in and select the amount of applications that I'm going to read for that day. Once we receive the application, we'll be looking at it in two parts. Again, an academic part and then your personal achievements. And then based off those assessments, our director will go in and decide on who gets admitted, who's waitlisted, and who's denied. In this process, we as readers do not have access to any test scores that have been submitted, just to let you know. And so that's why I was saying that, you know, if you did submit test scores and then after a decision was made, if you're waitlisted, then our director could go in and re-review the application itself.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I have a question here from Adam. How did UW handle the deferred enrollment? I'm assuming that's from last year, and how will that affect the number of first-time students admitted next fall?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually granted probably less than a handful of deferrals. We really stuck to our deferral policy. Unless there was an extenuating circumstance that has happened that's not COVID related, we did not grant deferrals. So students who had to leave because of military reasons or who had truly had tragic accidents happen to them or health concerns, those students were submitting deferrals and our director was reviewing them and then granting deferrals. But again, that was just a handful of students. So it really does not affect our next incoming class at all. For students who were trying to get deferrals due to COVID or natural disasters, they were not being granted. So a lot of them are either starting this year, maybe doing part-time. I'm not quite sure what they're doing, but they had to make that tough decision of whether or not they wanted to start in autumn 2020.
Mm-hmm. And Alicia, can you talk a little bit to the opportunities that the university has? It's in Seattle. There's a ton of industry there. What kind? I'm sure you have, you know, partnerships with a variety of industry. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just gonna go over again. I'm just gonna click through here. But we kind of we have a variety of options for students just to make sure that they're set up for success academically and have those experiences that can translate into the job field itself. So really we focus on these primary subjects that you see here. We are a research institution, so we really push and really hope that our students who come to campus, especially at the start of your freshman year, are participating in research. And you'll see a good chunk of our undergraduates who do. There are professors who lead research opportunities, and we have an entire database and directory and advisors on staff to help students kind of figure out what opportunities are going to best fit them and their educational needs as well. So there's a really way for you to do research that can give back to the communities. Your education definitely doesn't need to just stop on our campus either. So you can definitely branch out and participate in any of our study abroad opportunities. We have over 600 globally. So there are students who are studying global health in Nepal, who are going to the UW Rome Center to study education and engineering. And then we have students who are studying gender and human rights in Thailand. So regardless of the major that you're in, you could potentially do a study abroad program, get college credit for it, and then just get new experiences and being in an entirely different culture. And I think that's really valuable. I mean, I was a military kid, so I didn't do that. I just want to stay here in the US for 4 years. But I did have a lot of friends and colleagues that did study abroad and had great experiences there. And yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And then the final thing is just internships. I mean, like you were mentioning before, Liz, we're in Seattle. We have Fortune 500 companies, startups, both on our campus and off, nonprofit groups, government sector positions, all within the Seattle area. And a lot of those companies will partner up with the UW. They'll send representatives to talk to students. They'll do career fairs. That just gives our students an opportunity to really take what they learned in the classroom and apply that to a real job or internship experience. And with that being said, I mean, for graduation, for students who are interested in continuing on and finding that job, which I can show here, here. These are the major companies that our graduates will end up. We have about 74% of our graduates who find employment within 6 months after graduation. 83% of those graduates are within their career-related fields, and 19% of our students continuing on education, whether that be in grad school, the School of Medicine, or even the School of Law. And of course, for our students who are interested in going into medicine later, we do have pre-professional advising, so pre-health and pre-law advisors that are going to help you kind of stay on track regardless of the major you're in, to meet those requirements so you can apply after graduation.
Mm-hmm. The university is huge, and I'm sure parents are wondering, you know, how do students make that transition from home, from high school into such a huge, you know, educational environment? Could you talk a little bit about the living situations there, perhaps Greek life, and some of the supports that the university provides to students as they transition to college?
Yeah, I think being such a large institution, I mean, this is why we have a community statement on our application. We just want to make sure that our students are going to take advantage of the different communities on campus. And I think sometimes, especially when you're coming in from a small school, that can get overwhelming. It definitely was for me as a first-gen student. I mean, I visited UW campus, but I think nothing will prepare you for that first class in maybe a general education course that also doubles up as a prerequisite, and you have, I don't know, about 400, 500 students in that class itself. So what we do on campus is before students come, you will, after you've been admitted, you're going to join in on this online community. And it's actually a community that I manage. And right now we're on Yammer, a system called Yammer, and that might change from year to year depending on what I choose. But our students will get invited to Yammer, and then they'll have a chance to really connect with other newly admitted Huskies and really get the information they need from our office, the Office of Admissions, and potentially information from other departments as well. So that's kind of the first step. Then students are required to sign up for an advising and orientation date, and that date will happen sometime in the summer before classes start. And then that's where students will learn and sit down with their advisor and learning how to use the UW system, how to do a degree audit reporting, figure out, where can I go to find a job through the handshake system, and just figure out like what is required, what general education courses you need to have done before your end of your sophomore year, and then what prerequisites are needed for the majors of interest. So there's always going to be a point of contact for students to really get connected there. Once students are admitted into their majors usually after their sophomore year, they have a departmental advisors that kind of help them stay on track and graduating within that 4-year span. So our average time for graduates is 4 years, and our retention rate is quite high as well, as you see here, compared to the national average, just because of these resources that we have available. I think one resource that really gets overlooked, and I'll go back here on the slide, is just making sure that our Huskies are staying healthy. You're going to be a student in a new environment, home away from home, trying to create that space with other new Huskies. So it's just really important that you know that you're going to a university that's going to have resources just to keep you connected to maybe Hall Health if you need a flu shot, to the UW Medical Center if you sprained your ankle or just need other services there. We also have services, especially for any students that have tough issues that they want to talk about, or mental health. Of course, we have counseling services on staff. And then for any students out there wanting to do intramural sports or just take a morning yoga class, kickboxing class, or work out, we do have an on-campus fitness center, which is called the IMA. That's free for all students as well. So we just have you covered in all aspects there. With that transition, it's going to be a group transition. So don't worry, we have you covered. We're not just going to throw you into the system and hope that you figure it out on your own. There's going to be a person assigned to you to help.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question from Adam. I noticed you included your pronouns. Can you share how my trans child might experience UW?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. Being a public school and being in the state of Washington and in Seattle, we want to make sure that all of our students are coming into an exclusive or an inclusive community. And I think part of doing that is just really changing our mindset and being mindful of all of the students coming in from different backgrounds. And that's why we share our pronouns as well, because I don't think we should assume anything. But we do have different communities that your student could be a part of. And I think we're voted having one of the top LGBTQ plus communities offered on campus. And that's primarily going to be done through our Q Center. We have different events that are run that happen through the Q Center. And it's just a really just safe space for students to go and talk about different experiences that they have, or just talk about student life or class life in general. So there's definitely going to be a safe space for your child. And then of course, the different curriculum that really evolves around being inclusive and making sure that we understand the histories that we come from, and we're acknowledging that through our experience.
So this may be a tougher question to answer because the university is enormous and offers so many opportunities. But are there any majors or programs that are either new, especially innovative, or ones that you'd like to highlight for us?
Yeah, a couple of new programs that just popped up in the last year, maybe even this month, are going to be first I don't think this is too new, but it's newer since I was a student, and that's going to be the diversity minor. I think that's an important one to highlight. So if you want that additional piece to your learning, you want to be able to kind of break down those societal norms and just get a chance to learn about that history, like I talked about. I mean, you'll be able to do within any major, but I think the diversity minor definitely focuses on that way you can help the communities on campus and around you as well. There is a new nutrition major that has started last year. And for any students who are interested in nutrition, not necessarily wanting to go into the nursing route or other sciences, that might be a good opportunity for you. It's interdisciplinary, and it is a Bachelor of Arts. So it's going to be less science focused and more focused on like maybe figuring out like how food is integrated into the systems and how that can disadvantage or advantage certain populations. So if you're interested in that, that's another one I like to highlight. New this month, I should say, is something that we're getting together, and this is the undergraduate advising office that's working on doing a data science minor. So that's new. I don't know too many details about that, but for a lot of our students, they're interested in computer science, computer engineering, or any of the engineering fields. So it's really a good chance for you, especially if you weren't directly admitted into those programs, to still study it while you're on campus.
So we had a question about letters of recommendation, and could you reiterate what you mentioned prior to now?
Yeah, we don't require letters of recommendation, and we don't read them either. So please don't send them to us.
Okay, so that would just create some more confusion, I suppose, for you all.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask your counselor to send it to us, that's fine. It's not going to, you know, harm your review in any way, but it's more of an access piece for our end. We know that not all high schools have enough counselors available or have enough staff and hours available for them to write letters of rec for all students in their school. So we just decided to get rid of that as a requirement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of kids who are applying from this area. How does one differentiate oneself from all the other students from Acalanes or Miramani, San Francisco schools? How do you see that play out, you know, as you are going through these applications?
That's a great question. So, you know, it's all based upon highlighting different aspects in that holistic review. So academically, it would just making sure that you have a good balance of academic core subject areas and college prep courses. It's a fine balance because you don't want to overwork yourself and get, you know, which could harm your GPA in the long run, but you also want to be challenging yourself in a way that's going to help you prepare for, you know, college classes. So academically, again, just making sure you have 4 more core classes that you're taking, the more the better, and just going above those minimum college academic distribution requirements I talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
On a personal level, I think that's where our students tend to stand out further, because that, again, gives us an opportunity to just learn more about your own personal story and experiences that you had in high school. I don't want you to think and try to be like, okay, I feel like you know, the counselor wants to read this type of story or that type of story. Just really, I think the most successful personal statements that I've read are ones that are personal, that are not just speaking to all these other experiences or talking about just their friends. They're ones that are really think critically of the world around them, or just like really reflecting back on their high school experiences and sharing some of the I don't know, some of the accomplishments yet setbacks that they might have had in their high school. So just think critically of what, you know, of your high school experience and speak to that.
So we're in a unusual situation with COVID, and I'm sure that UW is dealing with that in sort of remote ways. And you know, after this is all over, after it's all said and done, hopefully soon, how do you see, you know, the university working through remote learning opportunities and in-person classes as well?
Yeah, so when this all started, we decided as a university just to do all online learning. Mm-hmm. And go completely virtual for the summer quarter. Mm-hmm. And for the fall quarter, for our students who are starting this year, that's looking a lot differently. We have about, I want to say like 95% of our classes are online, but those classes that need to be in person are going to be in person. There'll be smaller class sizes that really meet the state's guideline for having, you know, safe distancing and just safe gatherings in general. For students who want to live on campus, who need to live on campus, especially if you're an F1 visa holder, then we are going to always have housing available to you, again, following safe guidelines there. But I mean, it's going to really, if things don't change for 2021 and we're kind of in the same situation, then it's not going to look too much differently than what you're doing now.
Mhm. Okay. I also wanted to ask you about specifically sort of living situations. Friends of mine and my own students have gone up there and have found that students who are freshmen actually live together in either Greek housing or, I even heard about that there was perhaps a requirement for students to be in some kind of a community so that they wouldn't, feel lost. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so our campus actually doesn't have an on-campus housing requirement for students. But with that being said, our freshmen, we have about 3/4 of our freshmen who decide to live on campus. So a lot of our freshmen are finding community that way. Students who maybe they already have established friend groups could choose to live in shared housing or even do a shared apartments as well. And I lived off campus all 4 years. Just because I was from Tacoma, or I lived in Tacoma, and I wasn't too far away from campus, so I had a good established friend group. But it took me no longer than 10 minutes to walk to campus. So yeah, there are students who do decide to live in Greek Row with any of the sorority and fraternities. There are sorority and fraternities and professional fraternities that don't offer housing, so those students might live on campus that first year. I do recommend everyone live on campus. And don't care if it's a Washington State resident or if you're coming in from out of state. I always recommend that, because really that's going to set you up for success in the long run. And then you can decide in sophomore or even junior year if you want to live off campus or not, because there's going to be plenty of options to do that as well. But even if you choose not to live on campus all 4 years, you're still going to build a community. Don't worry. It might just take a little bit longer, especially if you're coming in from out of state.
So out of state, speaking of, it's expensive for out of state residents. It's a fantastic campus and it's so desirable, but it's expensive. Is there any piece of advice that you can offer to parents about payment options, or how it can be more affordable?
Yeah. So I believe our out of state tuition, just purely tuition, is around 36,000. So that is quite pricey. We do offer a Purple and Gold scholarship for our U.S. non-resident students. So all students are automatically considered for that. And based off the holistic review assessments, that's when we'll go in and award either anywhere from $3,000 all the way up to $8,400 per year, renewable for 4 years. So that's one way, and that's the only scholarship we offer out of our office. A secondary pathway that I recommend for everyone is to fill out the FAFSA if you're eligible. The FAFSA application just opened up today. And so if you're eligible for that, fill it out just to get a full idea of your financial picture, even if you don't feel like you're going to be eligible for any additional grants or scholarships or whatnot. It's a really good place to get started, and they do offer different options for parents as well. So just making sure that you fill that out no later than January 15th. That's our priority deadline. Other ways is to connect with your high schools, connect with your communities. I know that when I was in high school, I was nominated for a couple of scholarships. So make sure you're in contact with your counselor and being and asking them questions like, hey, what are some scholarships that my high school nominates students for? How can I be eligible for them? And just being proactive in that search. And of course, there are plenty of online areas where you can apply for other private scholarships and other scholarships that you might be eligible. Just keep in mind, though, you should never be paying for a scholarship application. It should be all free. If anything, you should be receiving money. So just being mindful of that when you're searching outside of your school networks as well. But it is tough. You're going to be submitting a lot of application, but it's worth it in the long run. And then the final thing is there are going to be scholarships available once you get to our campus. So you can apply to departmental scholarships. We have an entire office called the Office of Merit Scholarships, Fellowships, and Awards. So you're going to have other opportunities as current students to apply for additional aid as well.
As a big university, class sizes are going to be fairly big in the beginning of a student's college career. Can you talk a little bit about that, and are there ways to kind of mitigate that or get around that that large size experience as younger, lower classmen in college?
Yeah, one way is to apply for interdisciplinary honors, because those class sizes are only 25 students large. So if you wanted to get around it, you could do by doing it through the honors college. But if you don't want to do honors option, which I know is not for everyone, you can definitely, all of our larger lecture halls, regardless of how, like, if they're at max capacity or even just 400 or 500 students large, are broken down into quiz sections. So no, it's not a place where you're going to go just take quizzes all day, but it gives you the opportunity to take that larger lecture hall and meet with 30 other students or 29 other students and just get that opportunity to talk about what's discussed in class, get help from a TA, and then also set up study groups and work on projects with your classmates as well. And then if you're worried about not being able to access your professors who teach the classes, don't worry about that. All of our professors have office hours. You can ask questions in class, before and after class as well. I was working all 4 years, so I just emailed my professors and they get back to you really quickly if you ever needed anything or had any questions there.
So can you talk a little bit about the Honors College? Is that an extra admissions application? I would assume it was. Do you give us some more details?
Yeah, so at UW, there are 3 different honors tracks. There's first interdisciplinary honors, that is more for students who are interested in leadership and who want to take honors like general education courses. So everyone has to take general education courses, but these ones are unique because they're A, smaller classes, they're only 25 students large, and then B, they're taught by professors in the area. We'll pull professors from other schools that will host this class that's only unique toward that quarter. And it's all interdisciplinary. So if you're studying like a science-based subject area, just note that it's going to be applied to social sciences and humanities, and there's going to be a component where you can really apply that to the communities around you as well. So your education or anything that you're learning in the classroom is always going to be applied to making the world a better place. I know that sounds really cheesy, but that's kind of their mission, and that's why it's a leadership-based honors program. So that just means you have a project that you have to complete, and then there's a study abroad or even an internship component that you have to complete if you want that honors distinction. But if you're not interested in interdisciplinary honors, let's say you're looking at the website, like, oh, I don't want to apply for that. I don't want to be a part of that program. There is departmental honors that students can do once you get into your majors. So that's typically for your junior and senior year. Or if you just want that well-rounded experience, you can do both tracks as well. If you're interested in interdisciplinary honors, that essays just need to be submitted in the coalition as well. It's part of the UW application.
Great. I see a question in the Q&A. The Q&A is not appearing, so hopefully whoever's asking that can transfer over to the chat room, and we can answer your question. So I have a couple other questions. What are students doing in their free time there? I can imagine there's a million things going on, but do you want to highlight any things that are particularly fun, or something that's unusual?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out what word to start. Since you're in Seattle, there's so much going on. So if you are in the art scene or the music scene, there's definitely gonna be something for you. And a lot of the hangout spots for our students are gonna be around the Ave area. So it's easily accessible. You can just walk to it and figure out what you want to do for the night or even through the weekend. For our students in the summertime, you'll notice that all Seattleites are out and about. Nobody stays in during the summertime because that's going to be your best weather, spring, summer, and fall, and where you get the least amount of rain. So that can be paddleboarding on Lake Union. That can be going to any of we have tons of parks, and they're all beautiful and they're all unique in their own way. if you wanted to check out the Fremont area and see what the center of the universe looked like, there's a signpost there, or even the Fremont Troll. There's just a lot of different like areas to explore. And so that's typically what our students are doing. And then of course, I mean, again, Pacific Northwest, there's no shortage of things to do in the mountains. So you have a mountain activity and a lake or even a river activity, it's there, it's available.
Nice. I know a lot of people are interested in computer science, especially up there. Can you talk a little bit about your computer science offerings and what that means?
Yeah, so computer science, or the Paul Allen School of Computer Science and Engineering, offers 2 majors. The first one is computer science and the second one is computer engineering, and they are direct to major options. So that just means that your best chances of getting into the program are going to be as freshmen. So you do want to list those, one of those choices as your first choice on your application to be considered. For students interested in the coding aspect, computer science is going to probably be better fit for you. For students who are interested in tinkering around with, you know, the mechanics, then computer engineering is probably going to be a better fit for you. But if you're not quite sure, just list one of them and you'll be considered for the program. And then you can work with your advisor later and switch in between the 2 if needed. Do keep in mind that computer science at the University of Washington does give priority to Washington State residents. So we're going to be admitting a majority of Washington State residents, and maybe only, I think in the previous year, there was only about, please don't quote me on this, but 20 to 30 students were admitted from out of state. So it is a very competitive program. Mm-hmm. But like I mentioned earlier, there's a data science minor, or you can do a concentration in computer science as well. So there are other data science related majors offered on campus that students can look into pursuing, mm-hmm. and then doing that concentration in as well. So not being admitted is not going to be the end pathway for our students. If you ever have any questions about any of those 2 programs or what it has to offer, any of the projects or the robotics teams that they have, feel free to reach out to the computer science department directly. They're able to talk to prospective students and families.
Great. So it's been great to hear, you know, the information about the university. Can families contact you directly if they have questions?
Yes, they can.
And they can go through me, but you would you like to give your website out or your email
Oh,
address?
yes. So sorry. My email address is really simple. There's not a way for me to type it anywhere, but it's rough, like a dog, RUFF. That's my last name. A for Alicia, so Ruffa at uw.edu. So I'm going to say that one more time. It's going to be Ruffa, RUFFA, at uw.edu. And that's my direct email.
Great. Well, Alicia, thank you so much again. And we hope to be sending lots of people your way. And thank you so much. And if there are any other questions, we can maybe see if there's any coming in. Maybe take a couple of seconds to see. There's so much information to cover, and it's a big conversation, you know, UW, and we hope the Huskies are going to have a great season. By the way, are you all doing football right now? Is it coming back to life or not?
I think there's an announcement made, but I'm going to be honest, I haven't looked. It's been so busy. Do check out our Husky Athletics page. Usually they send us an email, so I don't think they made a final decision on what that's going to look like yet. But there was a question from an anonymous attendee. It says, what's the breakdown of the freshman percentages on campus? And I always like to share this just because I feel like we do a good job of keeping our student body diverse ethnically as well. So we have about 45% of our students are male or identify as male, and then about 54% of our students who identify as female for that question. For our ethnic breakdown, we have about 37% of our students are Caucasian, 22.5% are Asian, 15%, only 15% of students are international students, which are students who need an F1 visa to attend the UW. For our Latino and Hispanic population, we're at a 8.9, and then it kind of just filters down. We have Southeast Asian 6.4, and then 4.2 for our African American or Black student population. So that's kind of the breakdown there.
Okay.
If you are interested in the stat sheets, just feel free to type in UW admission stats, and you can pull up those statistics there too.
Okay. Okay, Alicia, well, thanks again, and have a great rest of the semester. I know it's a very busy time, so good luck with that, and we look forward to sending lots of students your way.
Thank you. It was so nice to meet you all. I hope you enjoy the rest of your school year, and of course, good luck on your applications. Thanks, Liz, for having me.
Thanks a lot. Okay. Bye-bye.